Deep in the jungles of Central America, a towering stone pyramid stands with carvings so precise they mirror symbols found halfway across the world in ancient Egypt. How could two civilizations separated by oceans and millennia carve nearly identical designs without ever meeting? This isn't just coincidence. It's a mystery that defies everything we think we know about the ancient world. Across continents and centuries, cultures with no possible contact shared eerily similar myths, architectural styles, and even astronomical knowledge. From the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor Wat, from the serpent deities of Mesoamerica to the dragon legends of China, the threads of connection weave a puzzle no scholar has fully unraveled. Today, we're diving into 25 of the most baffling parallels between distant ancient societies, connections so striking, they'll make you question history itself. Why did the Maya and the Egyptians both build stepped pyramids aligned to the stars? How did the Norse and the Aztecs both envision the universe as a cosmic tree? And what explains the shared obsession with serpent gods, flood myths, and celestial calendars among cultures that supposedly never interacted? These aren't just random similarities. They're clues pointing to something bigger, something hidden in the shadows of our past. Picture this: a world where secrets were passed down through generations, where builders and priests separated by thousands of miles somehow knew the same sacred geometry. Imagine the whispers of lost technologies, forgotten voyages, or even influences from something beyond our understanding. Whether it's the uncanny resemblance between the Olmec colossal heads and statues in West Africa, or the identical medical practices of the ancient Greeks and the Vedic sages of India, these parallels challenge the very timeline of human civilization. So settle in, because by the end of this journey, you'll see history not as a series of isolated events, but as a tapestry of connections waiting to be decoded. The truth, it's stranger than anything we've been taught. One of the most jaw-dropping mysteries of ancient history is how pyramid buildings spread across the globe like some kind of architectural meme, long before the internet or even basic cross-continental travel. Take Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza, constructed around 2600 BC with near-perfect alignment to true north. Then fast forward over 3,000 years to the other side of the world, where the Maya were building eerily similar stepped pyramids like El Castillo at Chichen Itza, precision engineered so that during equinoxes, shadows create the illusion of a serpent slithering down the staircase. But wait, it gets stranger. Over in China, the White Pyramid of Xi'an, shrouded in military secrecy, shares the same distinctive shape, and like its counterparts, it's aligned with celestial events. How could cultures separated by oceans and centuries arrive at nearly identical designs? Conventional history insists these were independent developments, but the details tell a different story. All three civilizations built these structures as sacred spaces, linking Earth to the cosmos. The Egyptians oriented theirs to Orion's belt, the Maya tracked Venus with uncanny accuracy, and Chinese pyramids allegedly mirror the constellations. Even construction techniques raise eyebrows. Massive stone blocks cut with laser-like precision in Egypt, while the Maya used advanced mortar recipes and acoustic chambers that amplified ritual chants. Then there's the symbolism. Pyramids weren't just tombs or temples, they were portals. The Egyptians believed they helped pharaohs ascend to the stars. The Maya saw them as bridges to the underworld, and in China, legends speak of pyramids as conduits for cosmic energy. Three cultures, one shape, a shared obsession with the heavens. Coincidence or evidence of something far more extraordinary? A lost thread of knowledge that somehow wound its way across the ancient world. Now let's shift our gaze to another spine-tingling parallel, the megalithic masterpieces scattered across the globe, standing like silent sentinels of a forgotten past. Take Stonehenge, that iconic ring of towering stones in England, precisely arranged to mark solstices with sunlight piercing its arches. Then travel to the windswept plains of Karnak in France, where over 3,000 massive stones stretch for miles in eerie geometric rows aligned with lunar cycles. And finally, sail to the remote isolation of Easter Island, where the enigmatic Moai statues stare blankly across the ocean, their volcanic rock bodies weighing as much as 80 tons each. What binds these sites together isn't just their staggering scale, it's the impossible precision behind them. How did Bronze Age builders without wheels or pulleys haul Stonehenge's blue stones over 150 miles from Wales? Why do Karnak's granite monoliths, some taller than 4-story buildings, mirror celestial patterns found in ancient star maps? And most baffling of all, how did Easter Island's Rapa Nui people, with no metal tools or beasts of burden, move their moai across miles of rugged terrain, then erect them on ceremonial platforms with perfect balance? Theories abound, from lost technologies to sound levitation legends, but the deeper mystery lies in the shared purpose behind these sites. Stonehenge's alignments tracked solar and lunar cycles for rituals. Karnak stones may have been a colossal astronomical calculator, and the moai, far from mere statues, are believed to embody ancestral spirits guarding the island. 3 cultures, 3 continents, one uncanny obsession, reshaping the earth itself to mirror the heavens. But here's the kicker. These sites aren't just aligned to the stars, they're also linked by myths of giants or godlike builders who supposedly raised the stones with supernatural aid. The ancient Britons spoke of Merlin magically transporting Stonehenge's pillars. Breton folklore claims Karnak's stones are a petrified Roman legion. And Rapa Nui legends say the moai walked themselves into place. Coincidence or echoes of a deeper truth, that these cultures might have tapped into a shared, ancient understanding of energies we've since forgotten. From the jungles of Mesoamerica to the banks of the Nile and the sacred rivers of India, one symbol slithers through ancient myths with impossible consistency: the serpent. Not just any creature, but a revered being embodying wisdom, creation, and the very cycles of life and death. The Aztecs worshipped Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who brought knowledge to humanity and promised to return one day. In Egypt, Wadjet, the cobra goddess, coiled around the pharaoh's crown as a protector, while the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, symbolized eternal renewal. And in Hindu tradition, the Nagas slithered through sacred texts as half-divine beings guarding hidden knowledge beneath the earth. What's chilling isn't just the shared imagery, it's how these cultures, continents apart, attributed near-identical powers to serpents. All linked them to enlightenment. Quetzalcoatl taught the Aztecs agriculture and astronomy. The Nagas whispered secret mantras to yogis. Even the biblical serpent in Eden, though vilified later, originally represented forbidden wisdom. Then there's rebirth. The Ouroboros' endless cycle mirrored the Aztec belief in serpent-driven cosmic eras, while Hindu texts described Nagas shedding their skins like the universe renewing itself. But the darkest parallel, the underworld connection. The Maya saw serpents as conduits to Xibalba, their realm of the dead. Egyptian funerary texts depict Wadjet guiding souls through Juat. And in India, Nagas ruled Patala, a subterranean world of treasures and occult powers. 3 civilizations, 3 serpent deities, all bridging heaven, earth, and the afterlife. Could this be mere coincidence, or does it hint at something more unsettling, that these cultures might have been drawing from the same ancient well of knowledge? The serpent wasn't just a local symbol, it was a global archetype whispering secrets we're still struggling to decode. If there's one force that united ancient civilizations more than any other, it was the sun, worshipped not just as a celestial body, but as a living god whose light dictated the rhythms of life itself. In Egypt, Ra sailed his golden bark across the sky by day, battling the serpent of chaos in the underworld by night. Over in the Andes, the Inca revered Inti, whose warmth nurtured their terraced crops and whose bloodline their emperors claimed to descend from. And in the Vedas of ancient India, Surya rode a chariot drawn by 7 horses, his rays piercing ignorance like arrows of truth. 3 cultures, 3 solar deities. Each one a mirror reflecting the same awe for the cosmic fire that sustained them. What's startling isn't just the universality of sun worship, it's the uncanny overlaps in how these gods were envisioned. All 3 were depicted with radiant solar discs, often haloed by flames or serpents, symbolizing the sun's cyclical journey. Ra's disc, the Aten, was crowned by a Uria's serpent, echoing Inti's golden mask surrounded by zigzagging sunbeams, while Surya's iconography showed his disc resting on a lotus, radiating like a cosmic flower. Even their myths intertwined. Ra rejuvenated each dawn after his nightly battle, just as Surya was said to be reborn daily by the goddess of dawn, and Inti's winter solstice festival, Inti Raymi, celebrated the sun's triumphant return from the darkness. Beyond imagery, their roles as life-givers tied these deities to the very fabric of existence. Ra's tears birthed humanity, Inti's light made maize grow, Surya's energy flowed through Ayurvedic medicine as the source of vitality. And here's where it gets eerie, all 3 were central to state power. Pharaohs ruled as Ra's earthly incarnations, Inca emperors were sons of Inti, and Hindu kings performed Surya Namaskar rituals to align their reigns with cosmic order. The sun wasn't just worshipped, it was the ultimate political blueprint, a divine mandate etched in sunlight, but perhaps the most haunting parallel lies in their esoteric symbolism. Ra's journey through the Duat mirrored the soul's path after death. Inti's solstice alignments at Machu Picchu's Torreon temple tracked the sun's rebirth. And Surya's connection to the yogic third eye linked sunlight to spiritual illumination. 3 civilizations saw the sun not just as a ball of fire, but as a cosmic teacher, a timekeeper, and a bridge between realms. Was this simply the natural conclusion of agrarian societies dependent on seasons, or evidence of a deeper, shared understanding, one that saw the sun not merely as a star, but as the heartbeat of the universe itself? Imagine a world where floodwaters swallow everything, where the sins of humanity are wiped clean by an angry god or gods, sparing only a chosen few. Now picture this story being told not just in one culture, but in nearly every ancient civilization, from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the jungles of Central America. The tale of a great deluge isn't just a myth, it's a global phenomenon, whispered across continents like a warning from the past. Take the epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest written stories, etched onto clay tablets in ancient Babylon over 4,000 years ago. In it, the hero Utnapishtim is warned by the god E to build a massive ark, saving his family and animals before the gods unleash a flood to destroy mankind. Sound familiar? Fast forward a few centuries, and the Hebrews recounted nearly the same story: Noah, his ark, and 40 days of rain. But here's where it gets eerie. Cross the Atlantic, and the Aztecs spoke of a world-ending flood where only Coxcox and his wife survived by floating in a hollowed-out cypress tree. The parallels don't stop there. In India, the Vedas describe Manu, the first man, who built a boat after being warned by a divine fish about an impending deluge. The ancient Greeks had Deucalion, who rode out Zeus's wrath in a chest with his wife Pyrrha. Even the Aboriginal peoples of Australia passed down stories of a great flood that reshaped the land. The details are uncannily similar: divine warnings, wooden vessels, survival of a righteous remnant, and a rainbow or bird sent to signal the end of the disaster. How could cultures separated by oceans and millennia have nearly identical flood myths if they never interacted? Scholars have long debated whether these stories hint at a real, catastrophic event, a memory so traumatic it echoed across generations. Geological evidence suggests that around 7,000 years ago, melting glaciers caused the Black Sea to overflow catastrophically, flooding settlements and possibly inspiring the tales. Others point to regional disasters like the flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates, which could have shaped Mesopotamian stories later adopted by neighboring cultures. But here's the twist. Flood myths also appear in places untouched by these events, like the Andes and Polynesia. Could this point to something even more profound, a shared human instinct to explain our origins through cleansing waters, or fragments of a lost global civilization that witnessed a cataclysm? What's truly fascinating is how each culture adapted the story to fit its worldview. In Gilgamesh, the flood is a capricious act of squabbling gods. For Noah, it's divine justice. The Maya saw it as part of a cyclical destruction and rebirth of worlds. Yet beneath these variations lies the same bone-chilling premise: water as both destroyer and purifier, reshaping humanity in its wake. Whether these myths stem from a single forgotten disaster or tap into something deeper, a collective memory written into our DNA, they remain one of history's most persistent and haunting mysteries. Why do we keep telling this story? Perhaps because somewhere in our bones we still fear the waters rising again. The art of preserving the dead is one of humanity's most haunting and universal obsessions, and nowhere does this fascination become more mysterious than when identical mummification practices emerge in cultures separated by oceans and centuries. Take ancient Egypt, where the elaborate 70-day mummification process involved removing organs, packing the body with natron salt, and wrapping it in linen soaked in resins to halt decay. Now sail across the Atlantic to the arid coasts of Chile, where the Chinchorro people were preserving their dead as early as 5000 BC, 2 millennia before Egypt's first known mummies, using techniques just as sophisticated. They skinned the deceased, reinforced bones with sticks, stuffed the body with clay and feathers, then sewed the skin back on like a macabre suit, finishing with a painted mask of black manganese or red ochre. And then there's the Guanche of the Canary Islands, who by the time Spanish explorers arrived in the 15th century, were still mummifying their dead in a style shockingly similar to Egypt: evisceration, desiccation with salt and herbal mixtures, and wrapping in animal hides. What binds these cultures together isn't just the technical precision, it's the shared spiritual imperative behind the act. For the Egyptians, mummification was a sacred passport to the afterlife, ensuring the soul's survival in Duat. The Chinchorro, though lacking pyramids or hieroglyphs, viewed their mummies as enduring vessels for ancestors who remained active participants in daily life, often placing them in seated positions inside family dwellings. The Guanche, meanwhile, entombed their mummies in caves, believing the preserved dead could intercede with the gods. 3 cultures, 3 methods, one unwavering conviction: that death wasn't an end, but a transformation requiring the body's physical integrity. Yet the most chilling parallel lies in the small details. All 3 cultures reserved their most elaborate mummification for elite pharaohs, Chinchorro elders, Guanche nobles, suggesting a universal link between preservation and social hierarchy. Even the materials whisper of hidden connections. Egypt used natron from desert lakes. The Chinchorro exploited the Atacama's natural desiccation. The Guanche relied on volcanic pumice to absorb moisture. And then there's the eerie overlap in symbolic adornment: Egypt's golden death masks, the Chinchorro's painted faces, the Guanche's dyed shrouds, all serving as eternal portraits of the deceased. Could these practices have arisen independently? Mainstream archaeology insists yes, attributing it to pragmatic responses to arid climates. But when you line up the spiritual beliefs, the soul's journey, the ancestor veneration, the meticulous care taken to mimic lifelike appearances, the parallels become harder to dismiss as coincidence. Perhaps these cultures weren't just preserving bodies, they were clinging to a shared, primal understanding of existence itself, one where death was merely a doorway and the physical form held the key. What if the secrets of the universe were hidden not in words, but in shapes precise, repeating patterns that appear again and again in the sacred spaces of civilizations that never met? From the Parthenon's columns in Greece to the lotus-inspired mandalas of Hindu temples and the hypnotic tilework of mosques in Spain, a silent mathematical language whispers through the ages. The golden ratio, approximately 1.618, isn't just a number, it's a divine proportion found in the spiral of galaxies, the curve of seashells, and eerily in humanity's most revered structures. The Greeks embedded it in the Parthenon's facade, where the height-to-width ratio mirrors this exact proportion, creating a harmony so perfect, the human eye instinctively recognizes its balance. Meanwhile, in India, mandalas used to map the cosmos often unfold in concentric circles and squares whose dimensions align with the same ratio, symbolizing the infinite nested within the finite. But the real shock comes when you examine Islamic geometric art, where compass and ruler transformed walls into kaleidoscopes of repeating stars and polygons. The Alhambra Palace's tessellations don't just dazzle the eye, they encode advanced mathematical concepts like quasi-crystal symmetry, a principle modern science only recognized in the 1980s. How did medieval artisans without formal algebra execute designs that mathematicians now study with supercomputers? The answer might lie in their shared belief. Geometry wasn't just measurement, it was meditation. The Greeks saw it as Plato's eternal forms, Hindus as a path to unity with Brahman, and Islamic scholars as a window into Allah's flawless creation. Then there's the Fibonacci sequence, where each number sums the two before it, generating a spiral that approximates the golden ratio. It's there in the seed arrangement of Vedic temple flowers, the growth patterns of Arabic arabesques, and even the acoustics of Greek amphitheaters, where sound waves ripple in perfect mathematical harmony. Three cultures, three artistic traditions, all bending stone, tile, and pigment to the same invisible rhythms of the cosmos. Was this convergence accidental? Unlikely. These civilizations viewed geometry as sacred because they believed the universe itself was built on these patterns. The Hindu Sri Yantra, a fractal of interlocking triangles, was said to generate cosmic energy when meditated upon. Greek mystics like Pythagoras taught that numbers were the essence of reality, and in Islam, infinite geometric repetition symbolized the eternal nature of divinity. The chilling implication: they might have been tapping into a universal code, one that modern physics now echoes in string theory and quantum mechanics. The temples and palaces they left behind aren't just art, they're equations in stone waiting to be decoded. High above the mortal world, where storm clouds gather and lightning splits the sky, ancient cultures envisioned gods who didn't just control the weather, they embodied the very power of the heavens. Take Zeus, the Greek king of Olympus, hurling his thunderbolts like divine javelins to enforce order. Then there's Thor, the Norse giant slayer, whose hammer Mjolnir crackled with the fury of thunderstorms as he defended Asgard. And across the Himalayas, Indra, the Hindu warrior god, rode his elephant Airavata into battle, his Vajra, a lightning-charged weapon shattering the fortresses of demons. Three pantheons, three thunder-wielding deities, each one a celestial enforcer, ruling the skies with identical symbolic weapons and near-matching mythologies. The parallels run deeper than their electrifying arsenals. All three were gods of justice, though in strikingly different flavors. Zeus presided over oaths and cosmic law, punishing oath breakers with his bolts. Thor was the people's protector, his hammer not just a weapon but a sacred object used to bless marriages and consecrate lands. Indra, meanwhile, upheld Dharma, the cosmic order, striking down chaos with his Vajra's unbreakable might. Even their personalities overlapped. All were celebrated for their strength and courage, yet often mocked for their tempers or appetites. Zeus's countless affairs, Thor's reckless brawls, Indra's drunken exploits, these flaws made them paradoxically relatable despite their divinity. But here's where the connections turn uncanny. Their weapons weren't just tools, they were cosmic symbols. Zeus's thunderbolt represented divine authority, forged by the Cyclopes as the ultimate weapon. Thor's hammer, crafted by dwarven smiths, was so heavy only he could lift it, a metaphor for the burden of protection. Indra's Vajra, said to be made from the bones of a sage, embodied both destruction and enlightenment, linking lightning to spiritual awakening. Three cultures envisioned lightning not as random natural phenomena, but as the deliberate strikes of moral arbiters. Even their enemies echoed one another. Zeus battled the Titans, primordial forces of chaos. Thor clashed with the Jotun, giants threatening civilization's borders. Indra slew Vritra, the serpent demon who hoarded the world's waters. Each god's victories weren't just personal triumphs, they were cosmic acts of preservation, ensuring the survival of order against entropy. And all three were tied to fertility in unexpected ways. Zeus's storms brought life-giving rain, Thor's hammer was invoked to bless crops, and Indra's defeat of Vritra released the waters that nourished the land. What does this global fascination with thunder gods reveal? Perhaps it's humanity's instinct to personify the raw power of nature, to imagine a hand behind the storm. But when the same archetype emerges independently across continents, complete with matching weapons, moral roles, and even flaws, it suggests something more profound. These myths might be fragments of a primal understanding, a universal recognition that the sky's fury wasn't just noise and chaos. It was the voice of something greater, a force that could destroy or sustain, punish or protect, all with the same crack of divine lightning. Beneath the world of the living, hidden in perpetual shadow, ancient cultures imagined realms so chillingly similar. It's as if they whispered across time and space about the same terrifying truth. The Greeks feared Hades, a sunless kingdom of winding rivers and echoing halls where souls wandered as faint shadows. Over in Mesopotamia, scribes etched tales of Kur, a cavernous abyss guarded by monstrous beings where the dead drank from dusty bowls. And in the Aztec Empire, Mictlan awaited a 9-layered underworld where spirits undertook a harrowing 4-year journey through darkness, wind, and obsidian mountains. 3 civilizations, 3 visions of the afterlife, all painted with the same brushstrokes of despair, labyrinthine complexity, and eerie familiarity. What unites these underworlds isn't just their gloom, it's their structure. Each was imagined as a descent, a literal journey downward into ever-deepening layers of mystery. Hades had its 5 rivers, including the infamous Styx, where Charon's ferry carried souls past gates guarded by the 3-headed hound Cerberus. Kur, meanwhile, was a sprawling netherworld where the dead climbed over a massive wall, only to be trapped forever in a dust-choked void. And Mictlan's 9 levels weren't just symbolic. They were physical trials, each more grueling than the last, from traversing a river of blood to enduring the razor-sharp obsidian wind. These weren't passive resting places, they were obstacle courses for the soul, demanding payment, endurance, or divine favor to navigate. Yet the most striking parallel lies in how these realms functioned as cosmic balance sheets. In Hades, the virtuous might reach the Elysian fields, while oath-breakers like Sisyphus faced eternal torment. Kur held no such distinctions. All souls, royal or peasant, withered equally in its gloom, reflecting Mesopotamia's bleak view of mortality. The Aztecs, however, tied Mictlan's challenges to the circumstances of death. Warriors and sacrificial victims went to sunlit paradises, while those who died naturally faced the underworld's gauntlet. 3 cultures, 3 answers to the same unbearable question. What awaits us when the light fades? But here's the twist, these underworlds weren't just about punishment. They were mirrors. Hades' asphodel meadows, where ordinary souls drifted like smoke, reflected Greek anxieties about mediocrity. Kur's lack of judgment mirrored Mesopotamian resignation to fate. And Mictlan's trials echoed the Aztec belief that life itself was a test of endurance. The chilling implication, these myths weren't fantasies. They were psychological blueprints teaching the living how to face mortality's void, one labyrinth, one river, one howling darkness at a time. The human impulse to record thoughts in symbols is as old as civilization itself. but when writing systems separated by thousands of miles and years bear haunting similarities, it forces us to ask, were these inventions truly independent or fragments of a lost linguistic thread? Consider Egyptian hieroglyphs, those intricate pictographs carved into temple walls as early as 3200 BCE. A falcon could represent the god Horus, a wavy line stood for water, and a sickle-shaped glyph denoted the concept of time. Now cross the Indian Ocean to the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, where around 2600 BCE, a script of 400 mysterious symbols appeared on seals and pottery. Fish motifs, human figures, and geometric patterns strikingly reminiscent of hieroglyphs in both form and function. Then leap forward to Easter Island's Rongorongo, a script so isolated it wasn't discovered until the 19th century, yet its carved wooden tablets feature glyphs of birds, plants, and celestial bodies arranged in the same reverse boustrophedon pattern as ancient Greek texts, one line left to right, the next right to left. What makes these parallels so unsettling is how they transcend mere aesthetics. All three systems mixed logographic symbols where a picture represents a word with phonetic elements where symbols denote sounds. Egyptian scribes used determinatives, glyphs that clarified a word's meaning, while Indus Valley seals combined animal icons with abstract signs that may have represented syllables. Rongorongo's glyphs, though undeciphered, appear to follow a similar dual approach, with some symbols likely encoding names or chants. Even their mediums whisper of connection. Hieroglyphs etched in stone for eternity, Indus script pressed into clay for commerce, Rongorongo's glyphs carved into sacred wood. Three cultures, three writing systems, all blending art with language in ways that defy coincidence, but the mystery deepens when you examine their cultural roles. Hieroglyphs weren't just communication, they were magic, believed to harness the power of the things they depicted. The Indus script, found mainly on seals and weights, hints at a sophisticated trade network where symbols guaranteed authenticity. And Rongorongo's tablets, according to oral tradition, were recited during rituals to summon ancestral knowledge. This triad of purpose, sacred, practical, and ceremonial, suggests these scripts weren't just tools but bridges between worlds. The most provocative theory, that these systems reflect a primal human symbol set, an innate visual language hardwired into our cognition. Why do civilizations keep inventing eyeglyphs for vision or wavy lines for water? Perhaps because these shapes mirror universal human experience. Yet when you see the same rare motifs like the man with raised arms glyph appearing in both Indus script and Rongorongo, it's harder to dismiss as coincidence. Could there have been an ancient maritime culture now lost to time that spread these symbols across the globe? Or does their resemblance point to something even deeper? The idea that when humans first grasped the power of symbols, we all reached for the same visual building blocks to make sense of the world. Until we crack these codes, their secrets remain locked in plain sight, waiting for a modern Champollion to reveal the truths etched in their silent strokes. The stars have always been humanity's first storytellers, and nowhere is this more evident than in the uncanny parallels between ancient zodiac systems that mapped the heavens not just as a celestial clock, but as a mirror of human fate. Take the Babylonian zodiac, born in Mesopotamia over 2,500 years ago. Their 12-sign wheel, each constellation tied to a month and personality archetype, feels instantly familiar: the courageous Leo, the analytical Virgo, the balanced Libra. Now leap across the world to China, where the 12-year animal cycle rat, ox, tiger assigns traits and destinies based on birth years, all governed by the movements of Jupiter. Then sail to Mesoamerica, where the Maya carved their Tzolk'in calendar, a sacred round of 20-day signs like jaguar, wind, and reed, each imbued with spiritual meaning and tied to cosmic events. Three cultures, three skies, one startling obsession, connecting stardust to human souls. What binds these systems together isn't just their structure. It's their shared belief that celestial rhythms dictated earthly lives. The Babylonians saw planetary alignments as messages from gods like Marduk, with eclipses omens of kings' fates. Chinese astrologers linked Jupiter's 12-year orbit to imperial cycles, where dynasties rose and fell under animal year influences. The Maya, meanwhile, timed wars and coronations to Venus's appearances, believing the star Kukulkan held divine authority. But the real shock comes in the details. Babylonian houses divided the sky into personality sectors, just as Chinese astrology assigned 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water to refine animal signs. The Maya, though working with a 20-sign system, shared the same core idea. That time wasn't linear but cyclical, with each period carrying its own energy. Even their symbols whisper of hidden connections. The Babylonian serpent dragon Tiamat, chaos incarnate, finds echoes in the Maya's feathered Kukulkan and China's celestial dragon, both rulers of rain and renewal. And all 3 cultures reserved their most precise observations for rulers: Babylonian kings consulting astrologers before battle, Chinese emperors employing court astronomers, Maya lords wearing zodiac emblems as crowns. The stars weren't just guides, they were political tools, their movements justifying power. Yet the most profound parallel lies in their enduring legacy. Today, millions still check horoscopes rooted in Babylonian signs, celebrate Lunar New Year under Chinese animal cycles, or follow revived Maya calendars. This isn't just superstition, it's proof of an ancient truth these cultures grasped: that humans will always search the night sky, not just for light but for meaning. Whether scribed on cuneiform tablets, silk scrolls, or stone stelae, their message was the same: the universe speaks if only we learn to listen. Among the most persistent and puzzling archetypes in ancient mythology is the concept of divine twins, paired deities or heroes who embody duality, balance, and the very foundations of civilization. In Rome, the legendary brothers Romulus and Remus, suckled by a she-wolf, grew up to found the eternal city, only for jealousy to end in fratricide. Half a world away, the Maya told of Hunahpu and Xbalanque, the hero twins who outwitted the lords of the underworld in a ballgame of life and death, becoming the sun and moon. Meanwhile, in the Rigveda, the Ashvin's golden-haired horsemen raced across dawn skies as healers and bringers of light, rescuing mortals from curses and shipwrecks. 3 cultures, 3 sets of twins, each one a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fascinations: creation and conflict, light and dark, the sacred bond that both unites and divides. What unites these stories isn't just the shared motif, it's how these twins function as cosmic architects. Romulus and Remus marked Rome's boundaries with a plow, literally etching order into chaos. The Maya twins' ballgame against the death gods symbolized the eternal struggle between life and decay, their victory ensuring the sun would rise each day. The Ashvins, with their honeyed remedies, bridged the gap between mortal suffering and divine grace. But the parallels grow even stranger when you examine their origins. All 3 pairs were born under extraordinary circumstances. Romulus and Remus, descendants of the war god Mars, left to die in the Tiber. Hunahpu and Xbalanque, conceived when their father's severed head spat into a goddess's hand. The Ashvins, sons of the sun god Surya, born from a mare's nostril during a celestial union. These weren't just births, they were miracles, signaling the twins' role as intermediaries between worlds. Yet the most haunting similarity lies in their dualities. Romulus, the pragmatic ruler, versus Remus, the defiant idealist. Hunahpu, the strategic thinker, paired with Xbalanque, the fearless warrior. The Ashvins, one associated with morning, the other with twilight, embodying the cycle of day and night. Time and again, these twins represent complementary forces: order and chaos, thought and action, healing and destruction. Even their stories echo each other. Romulus kills Remus over a wall, a stark metaphor for civilization's violent birth. The Maya twins tricked the death gods into self-destruction, proving cunning triumphs over brute force. The Ashvins used their divine chariot to snatch mortals from the jaws of fate, blending mercy with intervention. Why would cultures separated by continents and millennia fixate on twin figures? Some scholars argue it's an expression of humanity's innate binary thinking, light versus dark, life versus death. Others see a deeper astronomical link, the sun and moon as celestial twins, or the Gemini constellation's influence on ancient star lore. But perhaps the most compelling explanation lies in the twins' ultimate fates. Romulus ascends to godhood as Quirinus, the Maya twins become celestial bodies, the Ashvins are immortalized as the morning and evening stars. In the end, they all transcend their duality, becoming symbols of unity, reminders that even the most opposing forces are threads in the same cosmic tapestry. Their legends whisper a truth as old as time. Creation is never a solo act but a dance between two. From the deserts of Mesopotamia to the frozen realms of Norse mythology and the steaming jungles of the Maya, one symbol rises again and again, not as a mere plant but as the very axis of existence itself. The sacred tree appears in these distant cultures not just as decoration, but as a living bridge between worlds, its roots clawing into the underworld, its trunk anchoring the earthly realm, and its branches cradling the heavens. The Mesopotamian tree of life, etched into cylinder seals as early as 3000 BCE, pulsed with divine energy, its fruits granting immortality, its presence marking the center of creation where the god Marduk slew the chaos dragon Tiamat. Then there's Yggdrasil, the gargantuan ash tree of Norse lore, whose trunk stretched through 9 realms, from Asgard's golden halls to Niflheim's icy mists, its fate intertwined with Ragnarok's apocalyptic fire. And in the Popol Vuh, the Maya's world tree pierces the cosmos as Waka Chan, the raised-up sky, its roots drinking from Xibalba's dark waters while its crown blossoms as the Milky Way. 3 trees, 3 visions of the universe, all insisting that existence isn't random, it's held together by bark and sap and shadow. The parallels in their structure are almost too precise to dismiss. Each tree serves as a cosmic axis, what scholars call the axis mundi, a literal pivot point around which reality revolves. The Mesopotamian tree stood in Eridu's sacred precinct, linking the Abzu, the primordial watery abyss, to Anu's celestial domain. Yggdrasil's roots gnawed at by Nidhogg the dragon mirrored the Maya tree's roots rotting in the underworld's decay, both symbols of the constant struggle between life and entropy. Even the creatures inhabiting these trees echo one another. Mesopotamian carvings show the lion-headed eagle Anzu perched in its branches, just as Norse myth places an unnamed eagle atop Yggdrasil, both watchers surveying creation from their lofty vantage. The Maya went further, depicting the tree as a conduit for ancestral spirits, its branches thrumming with the voices of the dead. But the most haunting connection lies in how these trees embody time itself. Yggdrasil's fate is foretold. It will shudder and groan when Ragnarok begins, signaling the end of one cycle and the birth of another. The Mesopotamian tree's fruits, stolen by the hero Gilgamesh only to be lost to a serpent, symbolize humanity's futile grasp at eternal life. The Maya, master timekeepers, saw their world tree as a living calendar, its growth phases mirroring the movements of Venus and the sun. These weren't just static symbols, they were clocks, their leaves trembling with the weight of destiny. Perhaps that's why these cultures adorned their trees with such startlingly similar rituals. Mesopotamian priests anointed their tree with sacred oils, Norse shamans hung sacrifices from Yggdrasil's boughs, and Maya kings pierced their tongues to bleed onto bark paper, feeding the tree with royal blood. All 3 acts spoke the same silent truth. To nourish the tree was to sustain the cosmos. When drought withered Mesopotamia's groves or frost cracked Yggdrasil's limbs, it wasn't just an ecological crisis, it was the unraveling of reality's fabric. The trees weren't metaphors, they were the beating heart of the world. So why does this archetype persist across oceans and epochs? Maybe because when early humans looked at a tree, its roots hidden in darkness, its crown brushing the sky, they saw their own place in the universe. Not as masters of nature, but as fleeting creatures standing between the mud and the stars, forever reaching upward while the earth pulls us back down. The sacred tree wasn't just a myth. It was the first map of existence, drawn in rings of wood and whispers of leaves, and in its shade, every culture, no matter how distant, recognized the same truth, that all worlds are one, bound by roots deeper than time. Staring up at the night sky, ancient astronomers didn't just see random dots of light, they saw a cosmic clockwork, a precise mechanism guiding everything from harvests to holy days. The Maya, for instance, didn't merely track time, they wove it into a tapestry so intricate their long-count calendar could pinpoint dates over millennia with pinpoint accuracy, all while predicting celestial events like Venus's cycles to within hours. Their observatory at Chichen Itza, El Caracol, wasn't just a building. It was a stone computer, its slit windows aligning with Venus's extremes, its stairways mirroring the sun's path during solstices. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Egyptian priests plotted the heavens with equal precision. The Great Pyramid of Giza's air shafts align with Orion's belt and Sirius, the star tied to the Nile's life-giving floods, while temples like Karnak were designed so the rising sun on the summer solstice would ignite the inner sanctum like a divine match strike. But the real shock comes when you turn to Babylon, where clay tablets dating back to 700 BC reveal the zodiac's birth not as a mystical tool, but as a mathematical one. The Babylonians didn't just name constellations, they calculated planetary motions using base 60 math, the roots of our modern timekeeping, predicting eclipses with tables so accurate they're still referenced today. Their Enuma Anu Enlil tablets weren't starry-eyed myths, they were data logs, recording celestial omens for kings with the cold precision of a scientist. 3 cultures, 3 approaches, 1 unshakable truth: the sky was a language and they'd cracked its grammar. What's eerie isn't just their shared precision, it's how their monuments became stone echoes of the cosmos. The Maya's El Castillo pyramid casts a serpent shadow during equinoxes, mirroring Kukulkan's descent. Egypt's Abu Simbel temple was engineered so sunlight would pierce its inner chamber twice a year, illuminating Ramses the Great alongside the gods. Babylon's ziggurats, like Etemenanki, were stairways to heaven, each tier symbolizing a planetary sphere. These weren't random acts of worship, they were celestial blueprints grounding the universe's chaos in human-scale order. Yet the deepest mystery lies in their unspoken connections. The Maya and Egyptians both tied Venus to war gods Kukulkan and Horus and timed battles by its appearances. Babylon's Ishtar, goddess of love and war, rode Venus's light just as the Maya saw it as a harbinger of conflict. Even their calendar systems overlaid sacred and solar cycles, blending timekeeping with theology. How could cultures separated by continents independently link the same planet to the same themes of violence and divinity? The answer might lie in something far more profound than coincidence, an ancient, shared recognition that the stars didn't just guide time. They scripted destiny itself. From the dense forests of West Africa to the kivas of the American Southwest and the palm-fringed islands of Polynesia, masks have served as far more than decorative objects. They were living gateways to the unseen world. The Dan people of Liberia carve sleek, elongated wooden masks representing ancestral spirits, worn by the Glee society during sacred dances. When a dancer dons the mask, tradition holds that the wearer's identity vanishes, replaced by the presence of the spirit itself, its hollow eyes seeing beyond the physical realm. Half a world away, the Hopi-Kachina masks of Arizona embody benevolent deities who descend from the San Francisco peaks during ceremonies. They're painted symbols of rain clouds and cornstalks invoking blessings for the community. Then there's the Maori of New Zealand, whose intricately tattooed Tomoko facial carvings blur the line between mask and flesh. turning warriors into living vessels for their forebears' courage during haka rituals. 3 continents, 3 masks, 1 unshakable purpose: to dissolve the boundaries between this world and the next. What binds these traditions together isn't just the act of concealment, it's the profound belief that masks aren't merely worn but inhabited. The Dan Glee dancer doesn't perform as a spirit. Through ritual purification, chants, and drumbeats, they become the spirit, their movements guided by forces beyond human will. Similarly, Hopi Kachina dancers spend years in training, not to mimic deities but to channel them, their masked forms radiating the same stillness and power depicted in thousand-year-old petroglyphs. Even the Maori's facial tattoos function as spiritual armor, their swirling patterns said to resonate with the voices of ancestors during battle. In each culture, the mask transforms the wearer into something greater, a living bridge between mortal and divine. The ceremonies themselves reveal even deeper parallels. All 3 cultures use masks during rites of passage: Dan initiation, rituals where boys become men; Hopi coming-of-age dances where children receive Kachina dolls as spiritual guides; Maori warrior graduations marked by their first moko. The masks don't just symbolize change, they enact it. A Dan elder might say the Glee mask eats the old identity of the initiate, spitting out a new, matured self. Hopi children taught to carve Kachina dolls learn that the mask's pigments, ground from sacred minerals, hold the same life force as the rain they petition. And when a Maori elder taps the chisel into a young warrior's skin, each drop of blood is believed to carry the ancestor's strength into his bones. Perhaps most strikingly, all 3 traditions share taboos so specific they defy coincidence. In Liberia, women and uninitiated boys are forbidden from touching Glee masks, just as Hopi Kachinas are kept hidden from outsiders in underground sanctuaries. The Maori, meanwhile, restrict moko designs to specific lineages, with improper markings believed to attract vengeful spirits. This isn't mere secrecy, it's the recognition that masks wield power too potent for the unprepared. A Dan proverb warns, "The mask sees farther than the man," while Hopi elders caution that mishandled Kachinas might bring drought instead of rain. Material choices deepen the mystery. African masks often incorporate materials from ritually significant animals: antelope horns for speed, leopard pelts for stealth. Hopi Kachinas use feathers from eagles, messengers to the heavens. Maori moko ink mixes shark oil with burnt kore gum, fusing sea and earth elements. 3 cultures independently linked masks to the natural world's raw energies, as if decoding some universal recipe for transformation. But beneath the artistry lies a shared existential truth. These masks aren't theater props, they're answers to humanity's oldest questions. How do we speak to the dead? How do we harness forces beyond sight? By becoming them, if only for the space of a drumbeat or the span of a dance. The masks whisper a secret. Identity is fluid, the spirit world is close, and sometimes all it takes is a carved piece of wood or a drop of ink to tear open the veil. The idea of cities as cosmic mirrors deliberately shaped to reflect the heavens isn't just poetic. It's etched into the very streets of some of history's most ingenious urban designs. Take Baghdad, founded in the 8th century as the jewel of the Abbasid Caliphate. Its original layout, known as the Round City, was a perfect circle nearly 2 kilometers across, with 4 towering gates aligned to the cardinal directions and concentric rings of walls radiating inward like ripples in a pond. At its heart stood the Golden Gate Palace and the Grand Mosque, a deliberate echo of the celestial order. The Caliph as the sun, his courtiers as orbiting planets. Now cross the Atlantic to Cahokia, the sprawling metropolis of the Mississippian culture that thrived 1,000 years ago near modern-day St. Louis. Its central plaza, Monk's Mound, rose like an earthen ziggurat at the center of a vast ceremonial complex, with wooden sun circles, similar to Stonehenge but built from towering cedar posts tracking solstices and equinoxes. Then there's the sacred geometry of Hindu and Buddhist capitals like Angkor in Cambodia or Sri Lanka's ancient Anuradhapura, where concentric moats and walls mirrored the mandala, a cosmic diagram of the universe with Mount Meru, home of the gods, at its spiritual core. 3 continents, 3 circular cities, all whispering the same profound truth. Human settlements weren't just places to live, they were acts of cosmology, stone and earth hymns to the order of the cosmos. What's astonishing isn't just the shared shape, it's how each culture imbued these circles with near-identical meaning. Baghdad's gates weren't just entrances, they aligned with trade routes stretching to Damascus, Basra, and beyond, turning the city into a geopolitical compass. Cahokia's mounds weren't random heaps of dirt. They recreated the Mississippian vision of the layered universe, from the watery underworld represented by nearby wetlands to the upper world of stars. And Angkor's 5 concentric walls, they symbolized the 5 peaks of Mount Meru, with the central temple's lotus-like towers piercing the sky as a literal axis mundi. Even their construction methods echoed this reverence. Baghdad's bricks were stamped with Quranic verses, Cahokia's mounds built basket by sacred basket in communal ritual, Angkor's stones laid to the sound of chanting monks. These weren't urban plans, they were acts of devotion, every measurement a prayer. But the real mystery lies in their celestial alignments. Baghdad's gates framed the rising sun on equinoxes, while Cahokia's woodhenge posts cast shadows that marked planting and harvest times with agricultural precision. Angkor Thom's causeways pointed to the solstice sun, and its temple's bas-reliefs depicted the Hindu churning of the Milky Ocean, a myth mirrored in the city's vast reservoir system, where water symbolized cosmic nectar. The parallels don't stop there. All 3 cities were designed for procession. Pilgrims entering Baghdad would spiral inward toward divine knowledge, just as Cahokia's citizens climbed Monk's Mound in ritual ascent, and Angkor's devotees circumambulated temple galleries in meditative labyrinths. Motion wasn't just practical, it was sacred geometry in action, a dance of bodies mirroring the planet's paths. Why would cultures with no contact fixate on circular cities? Some argue its practical defensive walls work best when curved, and radial streets ease traffic flow. But the spiritual signatures are undeniable. Circles have no beginning or end, embodying eternity in Islam's infinite God, the Mississippian cyclical view of time, and Buddhism's wheel of rebirth. Even their declines carry eerie symmetry. Baghdad's perfect circles eroded under Mongol sieges, Cahokia's mounds abandoned after climate shifts, Angkor swallowed by jungle as dynasties fell. Perhaps their shared lesson isn't just in how to build cities, but in how to harmonize earth with sky, and what happens when that balance is lost. Today, as modern grids sprawl in soulless rectangles, these ancient circles remind us, urban planning was once a sacred art and every street a star map. Long before Joseph Campbell coined the term the hero's journey, ancient cultures were already spinning tales of extraordinary figures who ventured into the unknown, faced impossible trials, and returned forever changed. One of the oldest comes from Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh, etched in cuneiform over 4,000 years ago. Here we meet the arrogant King Gilgamesh, 2/3 god and 1/3 man, who embarks on a quest for immortality after the death of his beloved friend Enkidu. His journey takes him through cedar forests guarded by the monster Humbaba, across the waters of death, and into the presence of Utnapishtim, the immortal flood survivor who holds the secret Gilgamesh so desperately seeks. But the true transformation isn't in finding eternal life, it's in realizing that legacy, not longevity, gives meaning to existence. Now leap across the Mediterranean to ancient Greece, where Hercules, the demigod son of Zeus, endures 12 labors as penance for a madness-induced crime. Each task, from slaying the Nemean lion to capturing Cerberus from the underworld, is a masterclass in the hero's struggle between brute strength and cunning. Like Gilgamesh, Hercules isn't alone. Athena's wisdom guides him, just as the sun god Shamash aids Gilgamesh. But where Gilgamesh's journey is one of intellectual awakening, Hercules' path is one of redemption, proving that even the mightiest must wrestle with their flaws to achieve greatness. Meanwhile, in Polynesian oral traditions, the trickster hero Moai weaves a different but equally profound narrative. With his magical fishhook, he pulls islands from the sea, slows the sun to lengthen the day, and even attempts to conquer death itself by entering the goddess Hain Nue Tipo's belly. His failures are as instructive as his triumphs. When his bid for immortality ends with the goddess crushing him in her jaws, the lesson echoes Gilgamesh's. Some boundaries, even for heroes, cannot be crossed. Yet Maui's adventures, passed down through haka and chant, emphasize communal benefit over personal glory. Where Gilgamesh builds walls to secure his legacy and Hercules earns godhood through labors, Maui's deeds, like stealing fire for humanity, reshape the world for his people. The parallels between these stories aren't just NRRRTIVE Chinese letter, they're psychological blueprints. All three heroes begin with divine connections but are fundamentally flawed. Gilgamesh's arrogance, Hercules' rage, Maui's impulsiveness. Their trials force them to confront mortality, whether through the loss of Enkidu, the specter of Hera's wrath, or Hain Nue Tipo's fatal embrace, and all receive supernatural aid, gods, magical tools, or ancestral wisdom. Yet their ultimate transformations are deeply human. Gilgamesh returns to Yurok with tablets instead of elixirs. Hercules ascends to Olympus only after burning away his mortal half, and Maui's failures become the bedrock of cultural wisdom. What's truly striking is how these tales, born continents apart, map onto universal rites of passage. The call to adventure, the ordeal, the return, these aren't just plot points. They mirror the struggles every person faces: grief, identity, the hunger for something lasting. The Mesopotamians carved it in clay, the Greeks sang it in epic verse, the Maori danced it in sacred performance. Three heroes, three journeys, one timeless truth. The real magic isn't in slaying monsters or cheating death. It's in the grit to keep going when the magic runs out. High above the clouds, where the air thins and the earth touches the heavens, ancient cultures envisioned mountains not as mere geological formations, but as the literal thrones of gods. For the Greeks, Mount Olympus wasn't just the tallest peak in their land. It was a celestial palace where Zeus hurled thunderbolts from his ivory throne, where Apollo's lyre echoed through mist-shrouded halls, and where the fates spun destiny itself into golden thread. This wasn't fantasy to them, it was geography. Pilgrims would climb its lower slopes, leaving offerings at shrines carved into rock, believing the summit was a boundary mortals dared not cross. Then there's Mount Kailash in Tibet, a pyramid of black granite so symmetrical it looks sculpted by divine hands. Hindus revere it as the home of Shiva, the destroyer and regenerator, who meditates eternally in its icy shadows. Unlike Olympus, Kailash's summit remains unconquered, not due to technical difficulty, but because climbing it is considered sacrilege. Every year, thousands of devotees circle its base in a 32-mile kora, their bare feet scraping against stone in a ritual so grueling, some don't survive the altitude. Yet to them, death on this sacred circuit guarantees liberation from rebirth. Cross the globe to Mesoamerica, and the smoking volcano Popocatépetl looms over the Valley of Mexico like a watchful giant. To the Aztecs, this was no ordinary mountain, it was the warrior Popocatépetl, eternally mourning his lover Iztaccíhuatl, the neighboring, sleeping woman peak. Their tragic love story was woven into the landscape itself, with eruptions said to be the warrior's rage and snowmelt his tears. But Popocatépetl was more than myth, it was a portal. Aztec priests climbed its flanks to offer jade, feathers, and even human hearts to Tlaloc, the storm god, believing the summit was where sky and earth bled into one. What binds these sacred peaks together isn't just their divine residence, it's how each culture encoded cosmic truths into their slopes. Olympus's hierarchical pantheon mirrored Greece's city-states, with gods quarreling like mortal rulers. Kailash's unclimbable zenith reflected Hinduism's belief in the inaccessibility of ultimate truth to the unprepared. Popocatépetl's volatile eruptions symbolized the Aztec world's fragile balance between creation and destruction. Even their rituals echoed one another. Greek athletes competed in Olympia's games to honor Zeus. Hindu ascetics endure the Kora's ordeal to merge with Shiva. Aztec priests braved thin air to feed the gods. 3 mountains, 3 visions of the sacred, all insisting that divinity wasn't abstract, it had an address, and it was written in stone and ice, the most haunting parallel. None of these peaks were chosen randomly. Olympus's position allowed it to rule over lesser Greek mountains, just as Zeus ruled the gods. Kailash's 4 sheer faces align perfectly with the cardinal directions, matching Hinduism's cosmic mandala. Popocatépetl's eruptions fertilized the soil below, tying it to Aztec notions of cyclical sacrifice and renewal. These weren't just holy sites, they were carefully selected nexuses where geology and theology intersected. Modern climbers might see summits as trophies, but to these cultures, the real pilgrimage wasn't upward, it was inward, a journey to stand humbly at the threshold of the divine and understand one's place in the grand design. The mountains remain silent and snow-capped, still guarding secrets whispered to them millennia ago. In the shadowed jungles of Mesoamerica, the jaguar moved like liquid night, a creature so revered. Its spotted pelt draped the shoulders of kings and its snarl echoed in the chants of shamans. To the Maya, this wasn't just an animal, it was the earthly form of the sun god, a beast capable of crossing into the underworld and returning unscathed. Warriors adorned themselves with jaguar teeth, believing the predator's ferocity would flow into their veins, while rulers took names like jaguar bird or smoking jaguar to cement their divine right to rule. The Olmecs went further, carving colossal stone heads with jaguar-like features, their lips curled in eternal snarls, as if the very spirit of the beast had been petrified into monument. Now sail across the Atlantic to the sun-baked sands of Egypt, where the lion reigned as the ultimate symbol of sovereignty. The Great Sphinx of Giza, with its lion's body and pharaoh's face, wasn't just a statue, it was a sentinel, guarding the necropolis with a gaze that fused animal strength with human wisdom. Pharaohs like Ramses II wore headdresses edged with lioness manes, channeling the goddess Sekhmet, whose wrath could scorch enemies or cure plagues depending on her mood. Even in Mesopotamia, the lion stamped its authority into the bricks of Babylon, its image flanking the Ishtar Gate as a reminder that this was a beast fit only for gods and kings. Then there's the tiger, its stripes burning like fire in the forests of Asia. In China, the white tiger of the West was one of the 4 celestial guardians, a divine protector against evil spirits. Emperors kept tiger pelts as thrones, their power literally rooted in the animal's mythic might. Hindu lore went deeper, portraying the goddess Durga astride a tiger, her mount's ferocity mirroring her own as she vanquished demons. Even in Korea, the tiger was both feared and adored, a shape-shifting trickster in folklore, yet also a sacred guide escorting souls to the afterlife. What's chilling isn't just the shared reverence, it's how these cultures assigned near-identical roles to their apex predators. All 3 animals symbolized unassailable power, the jaguar as lord of the underworld, the lion as the sun's fierce companion, the tiger as a bridge between realms. They were emblems of royalty, yes, but also of protection. Egyptian sphinxes warded off chaos, Maya jaguar warriors shielded their cities, and Chinese tiger statues still guard temple gates today. Even their myths blurred the lines between beast and deity. The Aztec Tezcatlipoca could transform into a jaguar, Sekhmet's lioness form unleashed divine retribution. The Korean tiger often spoke in human tongues, dispensing wisdom or curses. Perhaps most telling is the way these animals were woven into the fabric of cosmic order. The jaguar's nocturnal hunts mirrored the sun's nightly journey through Xibalba. The lion's mane radiated like the solar disk of Ra, The tiger's stripes mapped the alternating chaos and harmony of yin and yang. These weren't just symbols, they were keys to understanding the universe itself. When a Maya king donned jaguar skins, he wasn't just claiming power. He was stepping into a role written into the stars, one that pharaohs and emperors halfway across the world would have recognized in an instant. The jaguar, the lion, the tiger, they were more than animals. They were living myths, and their roar still echoes in the ruins they left behind. Before anything existed, before light, before land, before even time itself, there was water. Endless, churning, dark. This image of primordial oceans isn't just a poetic flourish. It's the startling common thread in creation, myths from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the islands of Polynesia and the mesas of the American Southwest. The Babylonian Enuma Elish, inscribed on clay tablets over 3,000 years ago, begins with a universe split into two watery realms, Apsu, the sweet waters, and Tiamat, the saltwater chaos dragon. Their mingling births the first gods, but the peace shatters when the young deity Marduk slays Tiamat, splitting her body to form the heavens and earth, an act of violence that literally sculpts reality from her corpse. Blood becomes rivers, her roar becomes thunder, and her eyes become the sources of the Tigris and Euphrates. It's a creation story drenched in conflict where order emerges only through brutal conquest. Now sail across the world to Aotearoa, where the Maori recount the separation of Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother. Locked in a crushing embrace, their children gods of forests, winds, and war, lie trapped in darkness between them. It's the trickster Tain who finally pushes his parents apart, letting light flood the world for the first time. But here's where the parallels twist. Like Tiamat's body, Papatuanuku's soil becomes the land, and Ranginui's tears form the rain. Yet unlike Marduk's victory, Tain's act is bittersweet. His parents grieve their separation, their love now an eternal chasm spanned only by rainbows. Water, again, is the primordial element, but this time creation is born from longing, not war. Then there's the Hopi emergence tale, where life begins in the Sipapu, a dark, watery underworld. The people climb through 4 successive worlds, each destroyed by corruption or flood, until they reach the sunlit surface guided by the spider grandmother Kokianguti. Unlike the Enuma Elish's binary clash or the Maori's familial rift, the Hopi narrative centers on collective perseverance. Water isn't just a starting point, it's a recurring trial, with each flood symbolizing purification before rebirth. The third world, Kuskoza, sinks beneath the waves like a shadowy echo of Atlantis, its survivors carrying wisdom into the next cycle. What's chilling isn't just the shared motif of water, it's how these cultures envisioned creation as a rupture. For Babylonians, it was the splitting of a monster. For the Maori, the rending of lovers. For the Hopi, the breaking of a cosmic egg. And all three saw life as emerging upward. Marduk stacks heaven atop Tiamat's corpse. Tain's push sends the sky vaulting upward. The Hopi ascend through worlds like rungs on a ladder. Even their metaphors overlap. Tiamat's divided body mirrors Papatuanuku's soil-rich flesh, while the Sipapu's waters recall Apsu's sweet springs. But the most profound parallel lies in their unresolved tensions. The Enuma Elish ends with Marduk establishing Babylon as the cosmic axis, yet Tiamat's chaos still lurks beyond the ordered world. Ranginui and Papatuanuku's sorrow lingers in every storm. The Hopi, meanwhile, believe this fourth world will also end, urging balance to delay the next flood. These aren't tidy tales of triumph, they're reminders that creation is fragile, bought with sacrifice and haunted by what came before. The waters never truly recede, they wait, whispering of cycles we're still spinning within. Deep beneath the island of Malta lies a labyrinth older than the pyramids, the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, a 3-level underground temple carved from solid limestone around 3000 BC. Step inside its ochre-painted chambers and you'll notice something unsettling. Whisper a word into the curved walls of the so-called oracle room, and your voice reverberates with uncanny clarity, amplifying to an almost supernatural volume. But this isn't just an acoustic fluke. The Hypogeum's architects designed its elliptical chambers to resonate at precisely 110 Hz, a frequency modern scientists now recognize as triggering altered states of consciousness in the human brain. Halfway across the world, the Maya were engineering their own sonic marvels. At Chichen Itza's El Castillo Pyramid, clap your hands at the base of the towering steps, and the echo doesn't just bounce back. It mimics the chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, a sound so precise it feels intentional. Nearby, the Great Ball Court's parallel walls transform whispers into crystal-clear conversations across its 500-foot length, defying normal acoustics. Even more haunting, the Temple of Kukulkan contains a hidden chamber where vocal harmonics create a bizarre, chirping echo, as if the building itself is answering you. Then there's the ancient Greeks who took sound science to staggering heights. The theater at Epidaurus, built in the 4th century BCE, seats 14,000 people, yet without microphones, a coin dropped on stage can be heard clearly in the back row. Its limestone seats filter out low-frequency noise while amplifying voices, a feat modern engineers struggle to replicate without computers. Delphi's Temple of Apollo took it further. Priests delivered prophecies from a chamber where underground springs and fissures leaked ethylene gas known to induce trances. Pair that with the temple's strategic placement above a fault line, where seismic activity created infrasound frequencies below human hearing that trigger unease or visions, and you have the perfect recipe for divine revelation. What ties these sites together isn't just technical brilliance, it's the sacred role of sound itself. The Hypogeum's resonance aligns with EEG studies showing 110 Hz reduces left brain dominance, heightening intuition. The Maya's Quetzal echo wasn't entertainment, it symbolized Kukulkan's presence, bridging human and divine. Greek theaters weren't just for drama, they were vibrational amplifiers for catharsis, literally shaking audiences into emotional release. 3 cultures, 3 continents, 1 revelation. Sound wasn't just heard, it was harnessed as a spiritual technology. Modern researchers are just catching up. Archaeoacoustics, the study of ancient soundscapes, reveals that Neolithic caves like France's Rouffignac feature paintings clustered where echoes are loudest, suggesting rituals synchronized with reverberation. Even Stonehenge's bluestones, when struck, produce metallic tones lasting seconds, hinting at a lost rock gong tradition, the chilling implication. Ancient builders didn't just stack stones or carve tunnels, they composed spaces where architecture became an instrument and every whisper a prayer. Whether by accident or design, they mastered a science we're only beginning to decode, one where walls don't just divide space, they sing. At the heart of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, rose the Templo Mayor, a pyramid bathed in the blood of thousands. Here, priests wielded obsidian blades to carve still-beating hearts from living victims, offering them to Huitzilopochtli, the sun god, in a gruesome act believed to stave off cosmic collapse. The Aztecs didn't view this as murder, but as divine reciprocity. The sun required human energy to battle darkness each night, just as crops demanded blood to flourish. Victims, often prisoners of war or volunteers seeking honor, ascended the temple steps as living sacrifices, their final moments spent gazing at the stone effigy of the god who would consume their essence. Across the Atlantic, the Celts of ancient Europe practiced their own eerily similar rites. Bog bodies recovered from Ireland to Denmark, like the eerily preserved Tollund man, reveal signs of ritual strangulation, throat slitting, and even threefold deaths where victims were simultaneously stabbed, drowned, and bludgeoned. These killings weren't random violence, they were offerings to deities like Tutates, Essus, and Taronis, gods who demanded life to ensure fertile harvests or victorious battles. Sacred groves served as open-air temples where druids interpreted the spasms of dying men as omens, and the boundary between this world and the other world grew thin. Then there's Carthage, the Phoenician city-state whose Tophet, a child cemetery, shocked even the Romans. Urns filled with charred infant bones suggest systematic sacrifices to Baal Hammon and Tanit, often during crises like war or famine. Ancient texts describe parents placing their children into the outstretched bronze arms of Baal's statue, where flames would consume them as drums drowned out their cries. While some scholars debate whether these were stillbirths given ritual burials, the sheer volume of remains and historical accounts paint a darker picture, a society so desperate for divine favor it offered its most vulnerable. What unites these cultures isn't just the act of killing, it's the sacred calculus behind it. The Aztecs saw sacrifice as cosmic maintenance, the Celts as a bridge to the divine, and the Carthaginians as a brutal negotiation with capricious gods. All three believed that life energy, whether from a warrior's heart, a druid's chosen victim, or a firstborn child, was the ultimate currency to purchase survival. Temples, groves, and tophets weren't just sites of death. They were spiritual markets where humans traded flesh for favor. Yet the most chilling parallel lies in their shared language of ritual. The Aztec, flowery death, elevated victims to near godhood. The Celts dressed sacrificial offerings in fine garments, and Carthaginian stelae memorialized children as called by the gods. These weren't disposable lives, they were sacred intermediaries, their suffering framed as a privilege rather than a punishment. Modern minds recoil, but to these cultures, sacrifice was as logical as planting seeds. You gave something precious to reap a greater harvest. The darkness of these practices lingers not in their brutality, but in their terrifying rationality, proof that faith, when twisted by fear, can justify almost anything. Before time had a name, before light split the darkness, there was the egg, a perfect, silent vessel holding the spark of everything. This ancient symbol of creation cracks open again and again in myths across the world, its shell shattering not into fragments but into entire universes. In the Rig Veda, the oldest Hindu scripture, the cosmos begins as Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg floating in the void. From it emerges Brahma, the creator god, who splits the egg's halves into sky and earth, its yolk becoming the sun. The egg isn't just a container here, it's a living paradox, both finite and infinite, its golden sheen mirroring the duality of existence itself. Now journey to the Nile, where Egyptian priests in Hermopolis told of the Ogdoad 8 primordial beings swirling in the waters of chaos before the dawn of time. Their energy coalesced into a cosmic egg laid by the celestial goose, the great cackler. When it hatched, the sun god Ra burst forth, his light birthing order from the egg's fractured pieces. But here's where the Egyptian twist ignites. This egg wasn't just a passive vessel. It was a battleground, the serpent Apophis, embodiment of chaos, coiled around it nightly, trying to crush creation back into darkness. Every sunrise was a reenactment of that first cracking of victory snatched from the jaws of entropy. Then there's China's Pangu, the giant who slept inside the egg of heaven and earth for 18,000 years. When he awoke, his axe strike shattered the shell, sending the lighter half soaring upward as the sky, the heavier half sinking as land. But the myth doesn't end there. As Pangu grew taller, pushing the realms apart, his body dissolved into the world, his breath became wind, his voice thunder, his sweat rivers. Unlike Brahma or Ra, who stood apart from their creations, Pangu's sacrifice wove him into the very fabric of reality. What's mesmerizing isn't just the shared egg motif, it's how each culture sculpted the symbol to reflect their worldview. Hinduism's golden egg embodies spiritual perfection, its dual halves representing Atman's soul and Brahman cosmic truth. Egypt's version thrums with conflict, the egg a fragile order besieged by chaos. China's Pangu myth, meanwhile, frames creation as an act of self-destruction and rebirth, where divinity dissolves into nature. 3 eggs, 3 universes, all cracking open to reveal the same staggering truth. That existence begins not with a bang, but with a breath held inside a shell, waiting for the right moment to burst free. Yet the most haunting echo lies in what hatches from these eggs. Brahma's emergence mirrors the Hindu cycle of samsara, endless creation and dissolution. Ra's daily rebirth reflects Egypt's obsession with cyclical time. Pangu's bodily transformation resonates with Taoist harmony between microcosm and macrocosm. These aren't just origin stories, they're cosmological blueprints teaching that life, death, and renewal aren't linear events, but layers nested inside one another like the concentric membranes of an unbroken yolk. The egg isn't just where the universe began, it's where it still lives, humming softly in the dark, waiting to crack open once more. For centuries, the legend of Atlantis has haunted humanity's imagination, a glittering island empire of towering spires and advanced technology, swallowed by the sea in a single night of fire and flood. Plato first described it in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, recounting how this naval power beyond the Pillars of Hercules attempted to conquer Athens before divine judgment sent it plummeting beneath the waves. But Atlantis isn't alone. Across the Pacific, the lost continent of Mu was said to have been a paradise of temple cities and psychic energy, sinking into the ocean after a catastrophic earthquake. And in the Indian Ocean, Lemuria, a land bridge theorized by 19th-century scientists to explain lemur fossils, morphed into esoteric lore as a spiritually advanced civilization destroyed by volcanic eruptions. Three legends, three oceans, all whispering the same tantalizing question. Could these stories be distorted memories of real ancient disasters, or even glimpses of a forgotten golden age? The parallels between these myths are too striking to dismiss. Atlantis, Mu, and Lemuria were all described as utopias of unmatched knowledge. Plato's Atlanteans possessed crystal-powered energy and flying machines. Mu's knuckle tablets allegedly held secrets of cosmic vibration. Lemurian adepts supposedly communicated through telepathy. Even their downfalls mirror one another. Watery cataclysms triggered by either divine wrath Atlantis, geological upheaval Mu, or a combination of both Lemuria. But here's where it gets eerie. These stories aren't confined to philosophers or mystics. The Maori tell of Hawaii, an ancestral homeland lost beneath the Pacific. India's Mahabharata describes Devaraka, Krishna's city, submerged by the sea after his death. Even the biblical flood myth shares uncanny details, like warning signs ignored before destruction. Geology adds fuel to the fire. Around 12,000 years ago, the Younger Dryas event saw global sea levels rise catastrophically as glacial dams burst. The flooding of Doggerland, a once-inhabited landmass between Britain and Europe, proves entire cultures could vanish beneath the waves. Thor's eruption in 1600 BC obliterated the Minoan civilization, possibly inspiring Plato's Atlantis tale. And the Sunderland Shelf in Southeast Asia, now underwater, was home to advanced Neolithic settlements swallowed by rising oceans. Could these events have seeded legends of lost continents? Or is the truth even stranger? The most compelling argument for a shared memory lies in the specifics. Atlantis was said to lie beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a possible reference to the Americas or the Caribbean, where underwater structures like Cuba's alleged megalithic ruins tantalize researchers. Mu's placement in the Pacific aligns with Yonagune's submerged terraces off Japan, while Lemuria's proposed location near Madagascar curiously overlaps with the lost land Kumri Kandam from Tamil lore. Even the timing syncs. Plato dated Atlantis's fall to 9,000 years before his time, roughly 11,000 years ago, coinciding with the Younger Dryas. Yet skeptics counter that these myths are allegories. Atlantis as a cautionary tale about hubris, Mu and Lemuria as romanticized symbols of enlightenment. But when disparate cultures from Greece to Polynesia encode nearly identical stories of advanced societies destroyed by water, it's hard to dismiss the pattern. Whether these legends stem from collective trauma, fragmented history, or something beyond our current understanding, they endure because they tap into a primal fear that civilizations, no matter how great, are fleeting. The ruins of these lost worlds may lie buried beneath ocean sediment, waiting for their stories to resurface. Until then, the legends remain ghostly echoes of a past we're still trying to decipher. One of the most baffling architectural feats of the ancient world lies in the way certain cultures fitted massive stones together without mortar, not just neatly, but with joints so tight even a razor blade can't slip between them. The Inca fortress of Sacsayhuaman, perched above Cusco, showcases walls built from colossal limestone blocks weighing up to 200 tons each, their edges carved into intricate geometric puzzles that lock together like a three-dimensional jigsaw. The stones curve and angle with such precision, modern engineers still debate whether the builders used advanced templates, laser-like tools, or techniques lost to time. But here's where the plot thickens. These same polygonal masonry techniques appear in places the Inca could never have reached. Journey across the Pacific to Japan's forgotten megaliths, like the stone walls of the tomb of Emperor Nintoku, where massive interlocking stones form terraces with the same uncanny fit. The similarities don't stop at aesthetics. Both the Inca and Japanese masons employed a distinctive knob and hollow method, carving convex protrusions on one stone to slot into concave depressions on another, acting as natural earthquake shock absorbers. Then there's Egypt's Osirian at Abydos, a subterranean structure lined with granite blocks so precisely cut, their seams defy the tools we've historically attributed to the Bronze Age. The stones here aren't just fitted, they're articulated, with subtle curves and irregular angles that somehow align perfectly under pressure. How could civilizations separated by oceans and millennia arrive at near-identical techniques? Mainstream archaeology suggests parallel problem-solving when faced with seismic activity. Cultures independently developed interlocking masonry for stability. But the specifics raise eyebrows. All three cultures prioritized polygonal shapes over simpler rectangular blocks, despite the immense difficulty of cutting and fitting them. The Inca's UK limestone, Japan's volcanic tuff, and Egypt's granite are vastly different materials, yet all were shaped with a level of precision that would challenge modern stonemasons even with diamond-tipped tools. Theories range from the pragmatic to the provocative. Some propose the use of softening plant extracts to temporarily make stone malleable, a technique hinted at in colonial accounts of Inca lore. Others point to acoustic levitation myths like the Quechua legend of stones moving to the sound of a sacred trumpet. Japan's Kofun-era texts speak of the floating stone technique, where massive blocks were somehow made weightless during construction. Even Egypt's Edfu texts cryptically mention the hammer of Thor that could shape stone like clay, yet the most compelling clue might lie in the stones themselves. At Ollantaytambo in Peru, some blocks bear scars suggesting they were worked with a technology far beyond copper chisels, perhaps even machinery. The same odd tool marks appear on Japan's Masuda no Iwafune, a mysterious carved monolith often called the rock ship. And in Egypt's Serapeum of Saqqara, the granite sarcophagi are so perfectly hollowed out, their interiors polished to a mirror finish, that some researchers speculate they required diamond drills. Whether these parallels stem from shared ancient knowledge, lost technologies, or simply the universal laws of physics pushing builders toward similar solutions, one thing is clear: these stones weren't just stacked. They were sung into place, each seam a silent testament to a craft we've yet to fully rediscover. The walls of Sacsayhuaman, the terraces of Osoka, and the chambers of Abydos don't just defy time, they challenge our understanding of history itself. From the pyramids of Egypt to the step temples of the Maya, from the cosmic trees of Norse mythology to the serpent deities of Mesoamerica, these 25 parallels aren't just curious coincidences, they're a labyrinth of unanswered questions. How did cultures separated by oceans and millennia arrive at nearly identical architectural designs, mythic symbols, and spiritual concepts? Was it the universal language of the human subconscious, a shared dream of sacred geometry and celestial order? Or does something far more mysterious lurk beneath the surface of history, forgotten voyages, lost civilizations, or even influences from beyond our world? Consider the precision of these connections. The golden ratio wasn't just a mathematical quirk, it was carved into temples from Greece to Cambodia, encoded by builders who never met. Flood myths don't just share vague themes, they mirror each other down to divine warnings, wooden vessels, and rainbow promises, and the obsession with serpent gods. From the feathered Quetzalcoatl to the Egyptian Ouroboros, these weren't random animal totems, they were cosmic architects, weaving together creation, destruction, and rebirth in cultures that supposedly never exchanged a single word. Theories abound, each more tantalizing than the last. Could an ancient maritime civilization now lost to time have seeded these ideas across the globe? The Polynesians crossed vast oceans with nothing but stars to guide them. Who's to say others didn't do the same millennia earlier? Or perhaps these similarities point to something deeper, an innate human template, a collective unconscious that instinctively maps the cosmos through pyramids, trees, and serpents. And then there's the wild card. What if these echoes aren't entirely human? The Dogon tribe's uncanny knowledge of Sirius B, the Nazca Line's aerial grandeur, the precision of megalithic stonework. Could these be fragments of a dialogue with something older, wiser, or other? We may never know for certain, but that's the thrill of the mystery. Every unexplained parallel is a doorway, inviting us to rethink the story of humanity. Maybe history isn't the linear march we've been taught, but a web of connections we're only beginning to trace. So what's your take? Are these echoes proof of a lost global culture, the universal language of myth, or something even stranger? Drop your theories in the comments, because the greatest chapters of our past might still be waiting to be written.